Anyway,
Hi, Scarlett.
yeah, welcome, Scarlett. So, hi, I am Katie Street from Street, and we are here this morning to chat all things new business, and have a fantastic line for you. Oh, does that sound okay? Yes, good. So first things first, yeah, we're here today obviously to chat all things new business. Thank you everyone for joining us. We have, I think, around 370 people signed up, but knowing how webinars go, if we get near to 300, I will be incredibly happy. Please do ask any questions that you have for myself and the panelists in the Q&A, and also feel free to use the chat and say hello to everyone in the chat section. It's really hard when you've got such a big audience. I want to get all of you involved, but quite hard to do so when there's so many of us. So lots of people have however, submitted questions, which I will make sure we do ask as many as possible. Any that we don't get round to asking in the Q&A, I will save for next month's session, and we will also try and come back to you on email as well. So to introduce my fantastic guest, now we are missing one person, our brand speaker, the wonderful Vincent Gillet. He is joining us. I think he's just smartening himself up because he didn't realise we were going to be on video. So when he's smart, he will be with us. But I do have our two agency panelists with us. So first of all, Alex. So Alex is currently Senior New Business Manager at Born Social. And anyone who keeps an eye on knows Born Social knows that they do some really great stuff. And in fact, I'm really enjoying seeing all the stuff that you guys are putting out on your own social channels at the moment, Alex. You've had quite a fantastic career at Born Social, but previously, I've only just learnt this from stalking you and didn't even talk to you about this, knew that you were an actress. How amazing. Perfect for someone in new business, flamboyant as ever. And I also realised that you were in the BD 100, which I'm also part of. So the BD 100, for anyone who doesn't know, is the Drums initiative with someone else who's in the world of new business that I work quite closely with. Jodie Osman puts on with another guy called Richard McCarty to celebrate, and just like we are today, bring together everyone from new business. So hi, Alex. The other person that we have with us is James Lilley. So James Lilley is New Biz Director at McCann, and previously J-Wing, I believe. And before that, a little thing that we have in common, I didn't realise that you used to run sales and marketing at City football clubs, so Man City and a few other majorly famous football clubs across the world. Little known fact about me, I once went into business with Mark Redknapp and launched a football festival, which didn't quite go to plan. But anyway, it was a great fun experience, and we did do well from a sales and marketing point of view. It's just that we were a little bit like the football version of the Fire Festival because it never actually happened. Anyway, that's a whole other
Without
story.
all the conning of people, I assume.
Yeah. Well, we weren't trying to do that. We didn't get the license that we wanted, but we did have a really amazing lineup. And if it had happened, I'm sure I'd be very rich, but I'm not. So there we go. So yes, we have some great panelists. Vincent is trying to get in, so I might pop myself on mute and just help him get access. Before I do that, I'm going to kick off with just letting you guys, both Alex, maybe you first and then you, James, just giving us a bit of an overview of what's been happening retrospective, at both of your agencies from a new business and a marketing perspective, where you guys are, and how things have evolved, I guess, over the past couple of months since lockdown.
Great.
I'm going to mute myself. See you in a sec.
Great. So hello, everybody. Yes, I'm Alex from Born Social. I think it's been obviously a very interesting last few months. We very much started lockdown having just two quite big clients, which we were really excited about, who also very quickly paused any contract kind of conversations with us, one of which was one of the first retail clients to become bankrupt, so due to coronavirus. So I think we very much started this whole period quite feeling as though I guess things were quite out of our control, which is really interesting because it hasn't been a feeling that we've really had before, and I think that in many ways informed the kind of pivot, to use that word, but that we made, of moving in and leaning in really heavily to marketing, because that was one of the things that was within our control at the time, with so many moving parts. So quickly kind of tasked our strategy team with working out what thought leadership pieces can we put through. A lot of that was as a result of the things that we were hearing from our own clients, and nobody really knowing what to do or how to behave. And I think social was a really interesting, or has been a really interesting space during this time, because it was one of the marketing channels that brands were continuing to really lean into and use. So we had, I guess, a reason for putting that stuff out there, and that in turn gave us the ability to really increase our outbound efforts, actually, because we had things of value that we could go to prospective clients with, and have since been running lots of digital events as well, and really just, I guess, hamming up that marketing effort. And I think now we're in an interesting phase where we are beginning also to see more of those briefs come through. Again, it definitely paused for a while, and now it feels as though people are kind of, carrying on, and coronavirus is the backdrop, the context, I guess, of marketing strategies, as opposed to people just pausing completely. So I'd say that's, in a nutshell, a bit of our experience, which has been interesting.
I think interesting is a good word, isn't it? I was bricking it at first, if I'm honest, when everything started. I think McCann, and hello everybody. Yes, thanks for the introduction, Katie. I'm new business director at McCann, with a focus actually on our new Leeds office. But I think probably, early on, I think maybe like quite a few businesses, McCann moved to working from home before lockdown was official. And I think it was at that point that I was thinking, gosh, new business is going to be hard work now. Which marketing director is going to be making a decision on what agency they're using. So dare I say, as much as I'm a positive person, I was feeling not necessarily that positive at the start. And I think, selfishly, so what's going to happen to kind of the new business role? How's it going to change? But I think, and not to sound flippant, I think it's probably been pleasantly surprising. It's not been as bad as I actually thought it was going to be at first. McCann actually have a pipeline that's as strong as it's ever been, and I think that's really interesting, actually. But we've had to change our approach as well. So we probably had a couple, maybe even 3 weeks, where we didn't do any outbound activity at all. And then, similar to what you're saying, Alex, we kind of switched our approach, and we did a lot of planning. And to summarize that planning, it was how can we be front of mind? How can we provide people with kind of interesting information? How can we come across as smart? How can we get our personalities across? So we kind of, I guess, switched. I'm not going to use the word pivot because it's doing my head in the word pivot, but we kind of switched to a more content-led approach. How can we get articles out there? How can we get our thought leadership out there? How can we get our senior people talking out in the world with opinions and not kind of beige stuff? How can they actually say and put an opinion out there that maybe everybody doesn't agree with? We've done webinars. We've started saying yes to things like this, which is, I guess, how I've got myself into this mess. We've done things like community projects. So we set up a really cool project basically for 11 to 19-year-olds, how they can create artwork for a welcome back project. So when people go back to work in the city, how can they kind of create artwork that's going to be put up across the city when people get back, which has been great. It's got a really good reaction. Gosh, what else have we done? I think we've tried to engage with marketeers on a different level as well. So a lot of the content we've been producing, we've asked for marketeers to contribute to. So rather than, hello, Mr. Marketing Director, do you want to buy our services? It's actually, do you want to kind of work with us on something that we think is really cool and really interesting? So that's worked really well. And actually, we've got a really kind of good reaction to that, and a long sort of list of people who actually want to contribute and be involved, which I've been kind of amazed by. And then I guess the last thing that I've kind of got on my list that don't know. I think with McCann being such a big agency, it's almost a bit of an embarrassment of riches at times. All the kind of resources and stuff that we've got access to. So I think we've tapped into those things a lot better. So the central research team that have done lots of work on COVID and stuff like that, which has been fascinating and genuinely useful for marketeers. So getting that out there in the world as well has been really good. But yeah, hard, but not as hard as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And I think that Vincent is joining, bless him, he's having problems getting into Zoom. So one of the girls, Scarlett or Michaela, are just chatting to him to try and get him online. I think he's having to restart his machine. But one of the things that we chatted about prior in our pre-conversation to this conversation was the switch from sales to marketing. So that. And it's never an approach that I advocate, although I think you need to push out to the market. You need to push out to the market with helpful content that's going to solve a problem for your audience, not reach out to your audience going, hey, look at us, we've got these brilliant case studies, we're great, because agencies do that a lot, and not to, and sometimes you can get lucky, but more often than not, I think that just turns up, if you're trying to approach CMOs, heads of digital, whoever heads of advertising, whoever it might be, I do think you need to be pushing out to them with helpful content. So there seems to be a less of a sales approach out in the market and more of a marketing approach. What kind, and you've both spoken about the kind of things that you've been doing, but what do you think has so far, and I know it's only been, 2-3 months, or in between that somewhere, what do you think has been the most important thing that you've changed that's now helping attract opportunities? Big question.
Well, I don't know. I think, to be honest, I don't know if it's any one thing. I think it's kind of a combination of things. I think having multiple touch points, really. I think that's it. I would say that seeding stuff through different channels and in different ways has been really successful. We actually did our first webinar the other week, which went really, really well. So I think that's probably something that we're going to want to do more of. I think people are getting more used to dialing into, imagine doing this like 2 months ago, it'd be the weirdest thing ever. But it seems pretty normal now, and people have got used to it quite quickly. So I think maybe, if I'm to pick one kind of standout thing, I would say that's something that's been really successful.
Yeah. When you say this webinar's been successful, how are you judging the success of the webinar?
Crudely, on the amount of people that want to speak to us afterwards, to be honest. The amount of interesting marketeers that found it useful, and I don't know, think better of us from seeing the webinar.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're able to, it's all about identifying their needs and the problem that they have, and helping them get to some form of solution. I think that's absolutely key. Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I'd say definitely a combination of things. I think our digital events, webinars have been really useful because you can, I guess, judge the impact that they're having really easily and nicely. So on one hand, it's been about, how can we increase the amount of emails that we've got on our database to be able to, reach people in the future for a kind of longer term play. But also the softer insights that we've had after those events of, as James has said, people thinking better of us having dialed into an event, and also then knowing Born Social and who they are. It's also been quite a good reader of what specific clients and what the specific challenges they're having. So for example, we ran an event about TikTok a couple of weeks ago, and that saw a really, really huge uptake in signups, because it's been a platform that absolutely has flourished during lockdown. But as a result of that, it was on, you can tell then that it's on a lot of it's on a lot of brands' minds. And so therefore, how can we use that to then initiate a conversation or a follow-up, etc. You're already partway down that pipeline then, and you have a reason to reach out and speak to them further about it.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's really interesting, actually. The kind of, and you said it right up front, actually, Alex, that when you're putting more content in the world, you've actually got more reason to speak to people. You feel actually like you're adding value when you go to try and talk to somebody. which, I mean, it sounds like I'm stating the obvious, and perhaps I am, but I think that's something that's kind of really being clear for us.
Definitely. I think it's been about being truly helpful, and actually helping them navigate these kind of slightly rough waters. Because, you know, I've always been a believer that if, you know, and anyone who probably joined last month, so I can never remember what I said where, but I always talk about solving and not selling. And if you can be, you know, providing lots of different content sources, be that, you know, blog posts, webinars, you know, in the normal world it might be various other things like your actual meetings and physical events, but if you can be providing content, you know, through your social channels, through your website, through, you know, events and things that are truly helping your audience solve the problem that you know you can help them solve, that's where the best conversations start. And, you know, it's not to say that you're going to be able to create an opportunity straight away. Sometimes there will be a bit of time, but if you can be showing them that you're the thing that they need, that they don't have, to help them navigate this and solve that problem, that's absolutely key to, you know, starting good relationships.
Totally agree. And I think sitting alongside that, and anybody from McCann watching will probably cringe and roll their eyes because I always bang on about this, but I think what it's also allowed is kind of, I don't know, is to get our personalities across as like actual human beings. So as much as the kind of, there's the work thing over here, yes, we're competent, smart individuals, perhaps me excluded, but then the personality side over here, you know, we're also interesting, we're also people that you can get on with and feel like you can work with as well. And I think getting that across has been, I don't know, a bit of a plus as well. I mean, maybe some people don't think that, but I'm hoping that we're getting that across. How are
you finding, you know, do you know what, there's some really weird kind of dynamics I think they're going, because I actually almost feel that I'm meeting more, you know, I help agencies with, you know, with their new business and marketing, but I almost felt I'm able now to meet more people, because rather than going, okay, I'll meet you in 2 weeks in, you know, I don't know, some lovely bar probably is where I usually offer to meet people in London, but, you know, rather than, you know, having to wait until I've got a free slot and they've got a free slot, and I'm able to have conversations with people a lot more quickly. And actually, you know, although it's not 100% as wonderful as it is in real life, I'm quite enjoying the kind of, you know, doing meetings over Zoom. And it did feel really alien at first, like, oh god, I'm going to have a Zoom, you know, but straight away go onto a video call with someone that I've never met. Here we go.
Hi, Vincent.
There you go, finally.
We're actually, Vincent, you've joined at a very opportune moment. We're talking about video calls.
Oh god.
How it's so much easier to meet people now. We're all doing it over video, and it feels like some barriers have been taken down. But how have you guys found that in terms of Alex and James? And you can listen in and catch up, Vincent. I'm sure you'll have an opinion on this as well. But how have you found, you know, hosting your meetings over and pitches over, you know, and building that rapport, because it is a very different way to build rapport with clients?
Yeah, I think it's been interesting. I think in many ways it was, you know, a one-on-one meeting has been actually lovely to get an insight into people's living rooms, or their cats over them, or having to stop halfway through to, you know, sort out childcare, etc. And that has made it really human and has been quite a leveler in a really, really nice way. Exactly as we talk.
You didn't think about that mirror, did you?
My daughter's like, "Mummy, I need your phone." She's just taken it. I don't know why she needs it, but apparently she does.
Oh, what good timing! But
I promise that was not put on.
But yeah, I think that's been something that's been really nice. I think pitching or meetings with various people has been something that's actually been a lot harder. You know, not only from the practical, we need to make sure the tech works, we need really seamless transitions, because you can't talk over people because that becomes really awkward on Zoom, etc. That has needed way more rehearsing, for sure, which is, you know, actually quite a blessing in itself, as someone that really does enjoy a good rehearsal. But then I think on the other side of it, as well, I was listening to a campaign podcast last week, and it was all about digital pitching, and Victoria Fox from AAR was talking about some really interesting things around like the idea of chemistry, and almost if you've got it quite naturally with the people that you're speaking to, then Zoom, like Zoom only helps that in many ways. But then if you're challenged or you haven't got that chemistry or it is a bit awkward, Zoom equally absolutely exacerbates that problem as well. So you've kind of got this strange, like, it's either great or it's really awkward. And I thought that was interesting. Also, the idea of needing to put more energy into speaking when you're speaking digitally to get your points across as well is quite exhausting, actually. And being mindful of that, and how does that, change the time that you decide to pitch or the prep that you do before or whatever. But it's certainly something that we haven't cracked.
Pitching is, and Vincent, I'm sure you'll have opinions on this, but I love pitching. It's one of the when I'm not well, I am a new biz director of my own agency now, but I'm not I'm not so involved with the big flashy agency pitches, which I have been doing for the last 10 years prior to running my own business. But there's lots of things to consider. It's tough anyway building rapport with a client in a pitch, and I've always thought that there's something fundamentally wrong with the client agency relationship when you're starting off in this position where the agency is doing everything that they can to impress the client, and it's all very, very showy. And I do wonder, or I do hope, that actually what's happening now will slightly change how that works, and that things might become a bit fairer. But there are some really good tips. I was listening to the Mirren New Business Conference. I think I talked about this in the last session, but little things to remember, like throughout your pitch, keep them engaged by asking questions throughout, because I've been in pitches that I've won actually in the past and thought, bloody hell, how do we win that? Marketing director was sat there on their phone the whole bloody time, not even listening to us. They're doing that even more now. We're doing it on Zoom because they don't have to be engaged. They can be talking to their kid, looking at doing some other work over here. So asking questions throughout a pitch or a meeting and making sure that they're aware that it isn't just the agency being showy, that kind of collaboration, and making the client aware that they're going to be asked questions, so they better be listening, because if they're not, they're going to get called out on it and they're going to look silly, is, I think, one of the best tips that I've heard from anyone. Said, and there's lots of things. You're making sure you're at eye level, thinking about your background, which I'm very impressed with all of your backgrounds, by the way, much better than mine. But yeah, there's so much to consider in this new world. But I personally hope that there's going to be some changes to the client agency pitch scenario that come out of this, that will be for the better of client agency relationships when they actually start working together.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
I know.
That's what you're saying there. You scare them into a fear of embarrassment, Katie.
Yeah, I know. I love that.
Question and they won't know the answer. Yeah. It's blatantly obvious they've not been listening. I think. Yeah. I might embarrass myself a little bit here. I am obsessed with obsessed is a strong word. Interested in a video that Dave Abbott of AMV did, and this was years ago. It's the BT pitch. It's a pre-recorded pitch to the BT senior execs that couldn't be there on the day. And I don't know if you've seen it, but my God, it's so relevant right now, and it's an incredible example of how to kind of be, I don't know, charming and charismatic and interesting, but also kind of quite simple and to the point, and something that almost anybody could understand. And I don't know, I didn't watch that video if you haven't seen it, because I think it's so relevant now. Of course, this is years before Zoom ever existed, but that to me is a fantastic example of how you could run a pitch at the moment. I think there's also an opportunity to kind of stand out a bit more, isn't there, at the moment, because it's new to everybody. So there's probably creative opportunities that sit within that. But yeah, I don't know.
No, I agree. I actually quite like the idea of pre-recording parts and obviously practicing more. I think it's even more important to practice now, where you're making sure that you've got chemistry between your team and that your team are all focused and, you know, looking at the camera and doing everything that they need to be doing and nodding along with you and looking like they're engaged is, you know, the practice of the pitch is almost more important now. Now, we do have quite a lot of questions coming in. Just before I start to push out some of these questions, I want to give Vincent a proper introduction. And thank you, Vincent, for staying with us and retrying and restarting your machine and eventually joining us. So Vincent, I have known, gosh, not 20 years, but must be nearly that, 15 years.
Way less.
I know, yeah. So we also, which is odd, because I was just saying to Vincent earlier that Kenny Hislop joined us last month, who's the head of experiential for Pernod Ricard, and Vincent and I also worked together at Pernod Ricard, so I have all these wonderful contacts that I got to work with all these years ago. But Vincent went on to have an amazing career, and we've kind of always stayed in touch, although Vincent's been traveling around the world, leading, you know, being a CMO for some of the most respected and well-known brands out there. So from, I think, Nissan to Starwood Hotels, W Hotel Group, One and Only. I think I just mainly wanted to stay in contact with you at one point, Vincent, so I could try and get free holidays in all these amazing hotels.
To go free holiday.
Yeah, didn't quite happen. And then most recently, VP of International Marketing at Hertz, which I know that you won't be able to tell us everything that's been going on there, but there obviously have been some, you know, they've been quite detrimentally affected by everything that's been going on. And now you are moving into setting up your own business and a new startup. So do you want to tell us a tiny little snippet about what you're doing, if you're allowed to tell us, and then I might just
of course.
a few mean questions at you that I've already been pre-asked.
Well, morning everyone. Sorry I was late. Clearly, I think my laptop has got Zoom fatigue, as you probably all do, but it seems like our machines are also getting tired of this. So it looked like I didn't have the right update on my laptop, so that's what it was. Just quickly, I just wanted to say on the digital pitching, I think that's very interesting, and for sure in our business, nothing beats personal, face-to-face time. But I think in global pitches environment, when you have to engage with people from different countries, different parts of the world, I think this is a good rehearsal for these kinds of environment. And I've been in these kind of global pitches where you're trying to convince different regions at different times. And I think the fact that we've got this sort of habit will be very helpful. And I think just like you said, Jen, there's a creative opportunity for sure. And I'm sure you guys will think about that between biz dev and creative teams on how to be the most creative in pitching ideas over Zoom, other than just what we're doing now. And in my agency relationships, just quickly on that, my last incarnation at Hertz, we actually in-housed our business with the Oliver Group, which has been an amazing experience, I have to say. And I think what it did, other than, of course, for me and my team to have on tap, as it were, amazing creative talent, one floor below, there were about 50 people. And we were just about to in-house or co-locate the performance marketing group. And of course, that was amazing. I loved that. It was very quick. We got a lot of feedback. For them, they got to work on a lot of briefs. And it also takes a certain kind of client and team to want to have that sort of relationship, be very open-minded, do things quick, but also for the rest of the organization. And Hertz is not a marketing-led organization. Of course it was whilst I was there. But it isn't, right? It's a very operationally heavy business. For the rest of the organization, for them to see this agency as opposed to some kind of fancy office in Soho that costs money as far as the finance director is concerned, I thought that was a really good learning curve for the rest of the organization to see it, if you like, in action. And they got to like the agency a lot. And when the bill came every month, it was less of a problem. So I thought that was a really good learning curve. So what I'm working on, can you guys hear me? Because I feel like I'm breaking up a bit.
No, you're good. You've been okay. Now it's breaking, and now we can't. But I think that's.
I'm going to change background because I feel my Wi-Fi is not looking very good. I'm going to move around.
That's all right. See,
Do a
look, we're
quick house
we're
tour.
getting a nice tour of your house, Vincent. See, this
There
is
you go.
what happens
Looks
when you have
beautiful, Vincent.
yeah.
It's all fake.
No,
There you go. You can see my boys in the background.
no.
When they were perfect and young. Now they're much older and much more troublesome. At Hertz, which unfortunately has been badly affected by COVID-19, it was the perfect storm between no travel, of course, a very, very capital-heavy business. Hertz buys a million cars every year. And then we try and sell lots of these cars, 700,000 of them in March. And the residual value of cars collapsed because lots of people were trying to sell cars and there was no one to buy them. So the business has gone into Chapter 11 in the US. It doesn't mean it's dead. It means they restructured their debt. So I've left and I'm setting up my own startup at the moment around the mobility space. And what I'm going after is the company car, which I think is an antiquated, overpriced, overtaxed HR benefit. And there's 6 million of them sold every year in Europe on a normal year. That's quite a lot. That's out of 12 million cars sold every year in Europe. And so we're working on a greener, cheaper, more flexible alternative, which is called Mobility as a Service. So it's an app that gives you a multimodal travel choice within a set budget that's given to you by your company.
Amazing.
So you can book your train, tube, bike, scooter, car sharing, car rental, ride hailing, taxi, all within an app connected to the travel policy of the business. Sounds simple, but actually, obviously, it's a little bit complicated.
Yeah.
But it's completely doable, and we just need to get people out of their cars, which, of course, in this climate, it's a two. On the one hand, you've got cities saying, please do not get into your cars because if you all do, we're going to clog up the cities again. Not just because it's nice to have clear skies, but also it's just not going to work. On the other side, there's also a lot of people, I think companies and all of us are going to be, unfortunately, a little bit poorer coming out of this period. So we're all going to look at our cost line, including the tax we pay on the benefit in kind on the vehicle, and companies also looking at their car cost line for cars, and might maybe reconsider a greener option and a more flexible option.
Purpose, not the purpose, but the benefits are twofold now. We care more about the world and the environment and everything else, and being greener. I think that's something of every age group really, that people certainly coming out of this, I think is even more prevalent than ever.
Yeah.
But also, like you say, the financial side. So I'm exactly you as a business owner, and so I've been thinking, right, I've got this car sat outside my house, which I'm paying God knows how much for a month, which I'm not driving or doing much with. Yes, at some point I'm probably going to want to. Yes, I'm probably going to want to drive into London rather than get the train if I haven't had COVID yet. I need to go and get myself a test from Lloyd's, which I think you can now buy for £59. There's a tip. But if I want to keep myself and my family and keep being able to see my parents at some point, I do need to keep myself safe. So I've started thinking exactly that. I want a vehicle that is greener, that's going to cost me less money, that is going to be better on so many levels than the kind of slightly more souped up car that I may have at this point. So I do think there are lots of things that are changing. Vincent, we have had quite a few questions. I'm aware that we only have sort of 23 minutes left. Sessions always seem to go so quickly, and there are a lot of questions in the Q&A that I do want to put out as well, but I know our audience will be super keen to hear from you what you want to hear from agencies. When obviously when you started working with Oliver, you realized you had a need to work with an agency in a very different way maybe to how you had done previously, but right. Now and I don't know whether it's different now from where you were 6 months ago, pre or post COVID, or pre or post being a startup and having worked for all these huge.
I've been asked to move again now. Sorry about that.
Right, but what is it that what do you want to see from agencies in their approach to you, and what would attract you? Because I know from having been the same as you prior to me leading new business, and I hope why I'm kind of good at my job, is I sat client side with you at Panelists, and other places, and it is frustrating, the absolute drivel and crap that you get, and it just makes you never want to speak to that agency again. Them just sending the same thing that every other agency sends to them, thinking that their case studies and that their awards and everything else is really important to you, and it really isn't. But so what do you want to see from agencies, and how do you want to start an engagement with them? What is it that attracts you to them in the first place, I guess?
Okay. I mean, obviously, it depends what kind of industry you're in, what kind of degree of maturity you're in, etc. So I'm going to stay away from general points if it's okay, despite the fact, of course, it will be helpful to have some wise words on that front too. But I'll just look at it now from a travel perspective. So I'm a travel brand and I work with agencies. The whole customer experience is being disrupted right now. Okay, so you can't, and that applies to retail as well. So travel, retail, leisure as a whole, you can't consume your service in the way that you used to. And as a marketing head, typically you're going to have customer experience somewhere in your remit, or you'll share it at least with operational colleagues in some shape or form. And we all know there's two things that are coming out, is the acceleration of digitalization. There's no question about that. And therefore, I would be looking for, in terms of agency support, how can you help me get to that point in the quickest way? How can you help me make that relationship equally meaningful with the customer, despite the fact I'm removing touch points? So you see hotel brands saying, I can get into my room with the app. We hear about contactless delivery from Deliveroo and Just Eat and people like this. In their car hire business, it means getting into your car with your mobile phone. Basically, it could feel like a very impersonal, of course, experience, but it's a safe one, it's a clean one, it's one that people are seeking out. And therefore, I think agencies would need to get into their head into, that's a completely new landscape. How can you help me create meaningful relationship with customers in this era of digitalization being accelerated incredibly fast? And how do you then best communicate some of those new values to customers as effectively as possible? That's what I'd be looking for. The landscape's changing, experience is changing. Help me get there, make it meaningful, and communicate it.
I think that's exactly. We were saying this just before you joined, Vincent. Is how are you going to help me understand this, navigate this craziness, and get the cut through that I need? It's got agencies have got to show you how they're going to help you, and it's got to be bespoke and relevant, and not just sending an insights piece going, oh look, we've done this research on the travel sector, you need to go, we've done this research and this is what we think you need to do, and here are some ideas. You need to go that extra level. The other question that I have, that I know people will be interested to dig into, is so how do they reach you? Because you get how many, I mean, I don't know, I think the industry average say that most CMOs will get anything like 50 approaches from agencies a week, which must be very, very annoying and very boring for you as a CMO when you're trying to get on with your job. So do you read their emails? How do they start? Because we've been talking about webinars, and there's a lot of questions actually, which I will map on in a moment, about webinar fatigue. So do they need a tactic or a vehicle to attract you? Can they get through to you on email? Is it LinkedIn? Do you want a referral? How do you even start the conversations with these agencies?
Right. Well, right now, please don't bother, because I have no budget to offer, because I've left. Just saying. In normal, I mean, it's always best to go to the functional head. So whether, if you're into advertising, talk to the head of advertising, etc. I do read emails. I respond most of the time, not all the time, depending on how crazy things are. And I think the best way to reach is, that's a very good question. I don't know. I've not been in that. I've not been on the other side of the fence. I couldn't tell you.
I personally think having things, tactics or hooks. So obviously there is a lot of webinars happening at the moment, and I do kind of get where people are coming from with webinar fatigue, and I hope that this webinar is a little bit different to your head. Well, we've been very lucky. In fact, we do host webinars for our clients. In fact, the webinar that we're doing today is the most popular webinar that we've done, because I don't think there's a huge amount out there for those leading new biz and marketing at agencies. There's a limit, although there's 25,000 agencies or something in the UK, there's definitely not
that many. Amazing.
There is, yeah, but then there's not that many agencies, things that help bring us together. There are some great things like the stuff that the BD 100 are doing, and there are, of course, lots of intermediaries that you can become part of. But I do hope when we do come into a more normal place, rather than having you all here silent, that we can put something on that brings us all together and go for a drink, or I don't know, have a party, do something. So one of the things that's been asked a few times is about webinars, and do people think that people are getting webinar fatigue? I do think that they are, potentially, but if you're giving something that's truly helpful and you've done your research and you understand exactly what Vincent was saying, what your customers' needs are and what they need help with, and what you're putting on is actually going to help them, then I think a webinar can be a great vehicle for that. And there's lots of different ways that you can do them. So we do this webinar, which is more like mass, getting lots and lots of people together, or not together, but getting lots of people here and hopefully providing some helpful content. But we've also done with clients, which works just as well, and we've just been doing a series of these out in the States, actually, for one of our clients out there, which are much smaller sessions. So on those, we're getting together, for instance, they're an innovation agency, so we're getting together people who have had to, I think there's something, the stats say that something like 49% of companies have had to create a new service or new product because of COVID-19, or they've had to evolve their business in some major way. So therefore, more businesses than ever are having to innovate and change. As an innovation agency, what they're able to do is bring together the people that are doing that, and maybe the people that have done it well for many years, and some that maybe haven't, and in really small groups of 8 people, just getting people together to chat about what they're doing, how they're finding it, how are they having to change, how they're delivering projects. Now everyone's working from home, that are actually, and it's not necessarily even about them, it's about them bringing together other people from other industries that have got similar problems to them, to help them navigate the craziness that's going on. So I think there's lots of different ways that you can deliver webinars, or whatever your tactics might be, but you just have to think, is this truly helpful, and is the content that I'm giving something that my audience care or need or want?
I agree. I totally agree with that. I think people have got fatigue of crap webinars. I think that's what it is, right? But it's the same with anything.
One of those. You can tell us afterwards, please tell us a bit.
Well, hopefully this isn't one of those. But I think that's the same with anything, isn't it? If it's not interesting and it's not useful, then why the hell would anybody want to do it?
No.
So that applies to webinars as well, obviously. But it certainly sounds like you're more of an expert than I am, Katie, on how to create good ones, though. And that's the challenging thing, isn't it? But I think first and foremost that kind of stems from people as much as anything.
Yeah, agreed. And I do, I've always been an advocate. And maybe it's just because of it's the kind of person that I am anyway, but of bringing people together, because I truly think the best ideas come from people, and when you can bring people together from lots of different backgrounds with different knowledge from different industries, or whatever it might be, that's truly usually where the magic happens. So if you can try and create something that does that, and I do hope that this does that in a way, from having Vincent, who's client side, and you guys at different agencies with different experiences, hopefully there's some good ideas and things that people can try that will come out of that. And that will be the same for you and your agency and your business. What is it that you can do for your clients, and how can you help bring them together? We can't do it in the physical space anymore, and I think there are some interesting stats previously, prior to COVID, that talk about things like the the ways that most CMOs, etc., want to be engaged with is usually face to face. They want to meet people. That's the easiest way. So this is the next best thing at the moment, unless you want to try and arrange a meeting in a park somewhere and sit 2 meters apart. You could do now, I guess.
Sounds ideal.
Yeah, I know. Let's go. Okay, let's do a new business.
You might be onto something.
Yeah. But I mean, to get a project over the line, think how many conference calls you guys are on prior to delivering stuff, and this is a lot more effective. No question, seeing people's faces help connect dots and bring things together. Yeah. So that if there's one small positive, other than digitizing a customer experience, which marketers need to drive, that's also positive. And a more sustainable outlook on life too. I think that's definitely another positive. Let's hope it continues. I'm sure you guys have heard that the European Union had signed before Christmas something called the Green Deal, and the new Jean-Claude Juncker, the new head of Europe. And I know the UK is about to come out of Europe, which, okay, that's another story.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, the UK, I think, is part of this Green Deal, whereby basically the European view is every euro spent on growing the economy after COVID should be spent on more sustainable forms of economy and digitizing the economy. And if you look at the Green Deal online, look at it, it's fascinating. There's some very short kind of headline view of what's going to come out of all of this. And it's very clear now that this is still the mantra coming out. So I think these are two positive things. And now on simpler things like for every day, like I said earlier, conference calls were a nightmare. I always hated them. You always talked over other people. You can't work out body language and all of these other collaborative things. I was also reading the other day about Zoom diplomacy, which is an absolute disaster. It doesn't work. So G7 or G20 or any of these kinds of important meetings between political leaders on Zoom simply does not work because body language, timing, and all these other things are critical. But in any case, conference calls are dead, I hope, and this is a lot better for our everyday kind of, in the kitchen kind of thing. I think that's really positive.
Yeah, I agree. Alex, anything to add on? The other thing that I was going to say about webinars, I don't know whether you might have a kind of stance on, is I always used to, when we're organising physical events or physical tactics or campaigns for clients, we usually worked on a minimum of a kind of 6 to 8 week lead time. That has something to me that has been totally flipped on its head. I don't think anyone's even thinking about their diary in 6 to 8 weeks time anymore. It's much shorter, and my diary would always be booked up, for 2 months ahead, prior to COVID. And now I probably have got the next 2 weeks pretty busy, but after that I'm free as a bird. So personally, I think the lead time has also changed. When you're organising a webinar or the kind of tactics that we're pushing out now, I personally think the lead time's a bit shorter, but I'd love to hear your opinions on that as well.
I definitely agree. It feels shorter. We've been doing 2 webinars a month, which previously to have thought that we would be doing 2 events a month feels like, how are we ever going to prepare in time? How are we going to do that? But actually, it's worked. I think that it's been interesting because a lot of and I think this actually applies for webinars and digital pitching, the theatre, like there's no theatre involved in either. The operations of what are people going to eat and how can we make it interesting in terms of what we're doing physically is not there anymore. And so actually it's a lot simpler to be able to do a webinar, and content is then the most important thing. So everything is stripped back and all you've got is what are you trying to communicate? Is it worthwhile? Is it valuable? And I think with that as well, we've been trying to consistently put ourselves in the shoes of the people that are signing in to those webinars as well, because I think it's really easy actually just to forget that and kind of drive your own agenda of what you think is interesting, but actually why are they on that webinar? What are they looking to get out of it, and how are we making sure that we're catering towards that? I also think that rather than almost webinar fatigue, it feels as though from the events that we've run anyway, that there's more of a corona fatigue, and people are sick of hearing how they need to pivot, how they need to evolve, the different phases that we're going through. Like it's everywhere, and lots of different agencies are also telling them the same thing. So actually for us to lean into, you know, we are a social agency, therefore, you know, what can we do that is in the social space, that is much more in depth about social, like that is the value that we can provide. And so with that, I guess we've been exploring things that aren't totally COVID related, and that has had a really good you know, effect, and we've seen lots more sign-ups almost volunteering that way.
Yeah, I think people, you know, certainly we've got clients of every size, from, you know, small boutique agencies through to, you know, some of the biggest, you know, agency networks out there that are our clients. And actually across the board, people desperate. You know, I think at the beginning, 1 week or two in, we were doing webinars every week for one of our clients. I mean, goodness knows how I'm still alive, and that's just one of our clients. But right then, people did, you know, they were scared. They wanted information on COVID. No one knew what was going to happen. I do think now we've got to a point where people appreciate that this isn't going away, and the world is changing in line with what's happening, or what's been happening. So people now realise, okay, yeah, so this is the future, and I just need to adjust my business to potentially this new way of being, whether that's for another year, 2 years, forever, who knows. So I do think businesses and agencies and everyone else are understanding that there's a new, this is it now, and this is what you need to do. And therefore, you know, opportunities, just to kind of give everyone a bit of confidence, opportunities have been moving through the pipeline, you know, much more quickly. Now, I've got loads of things that I want to share with you guys, and I literally have 5 minutes left. So 2 things that I really want to do. One is share with you the results from last month's poll, which I'm hoping will answer some of the questions in the Q&A. And to those of you that we haven't gone back to on the Q&A, I promise I will send you all an independent email, and I can copy in Alex and James and Vincent, and we can all give you our opinions. But we're running out of time. And I would love to have this as like an hour-and-a-half session, but I'm sure that you all have busy lives and don't want to be listening to me for half your day. Right, so I'm going to share my screen. Excuse the messiness of my desktop, but I just want to make sure that you can all see this. Magically, is this working? This is what oh, hang on. No. Can you see that?
A very busy Excel file.
Can you? No, hang on. Can you just see a busy desktop?
Yeah.
No, Excel file.
Oh, that's not what you want. Oh goodness! Right, hang on. Let me stop that. The joys of Zoom, eh? Let me see if I can actually share just the keynote. No, oh well, I'm not going to share the keynote, but what I'm going to do is tell you the results instead, because I'm clearly not clever enough to present. It's something to do with my having 2 screens, which doesn't help me when I'm trying to do this. So last month we asked all the agencies that joined how many new business opportunities they've engaged with in that month. Only 7% of people said none, which I think is amazing. So where 40% of people had at least one, and over 53% of people had more than 3. So I think that shows you things have certainly started to be picking up. It isn't totally barren out there. What sales and marketing activity have they been focused on in the last month? So actually the most prominent was thought leadership content and blogs, coming in, that was 35%. I'll share these slides with everyone. 29% webinars and online events, so that was a very close second. 22% other, which I need to dig into what that is. 11% email campaigns, and 3% using intermediaries, AARs, creative briefs, etc. So I think that's super interesting, and I will run the poll again in a second, so please do stay online for another minute or 2 if you can, to fill that in for us. And then where are you seeing the most success? So most people said actually the thought leadership content and blogs and the webinars and online events were certainly delivering the most comeback. And in terms of what people need or wanted help with from, I guess, or advice on these sessions, is more often than not, actually nearly 50% of you came back and said that you want help with prospecting, pitching, coming in quite low, actually, only 1%, writing skills, and the psychology of sales being the other top two. So I will share this in a lovely PDF along with the AMV Dave Abbott pitch. James, I'll find a link for that and make sure it's the right one, and I'll share that with everyone as well. Yes. So what I'm going to do, and just launch it in the background, is do the same poll, because it's really interesting for us to see where we are now and where we are again next month. So please do, I'm just launching it now, please do fill that in the background. Whilst people are filling that in, guys, I was going to ask you all to give your top tips. So seeing as James and Alex might actually be able to fill in the poll, I'll go to them last. Vincent, if you had to give a top tip for what agencies could be doing now to help them attract the right new clients that need them, the clients that need them.
I got annoyed at the peak of Corona. Let's assume it's behind us, definitely, and it's gone. It was brands trying to latch on to COVID and say, "Oh, we're all in this together," and doing all these sort of fluffy advertising. It really wound me up, and I think it's all about doing things. And there's a great word which a previous agency I worked with called story doing. And that's exactly what agencies, I think, should pitch to clients to stand out, because that's what brands should be doing. They should be doing things to help their customers around this new landscape, and they should communicate around these actions. That's what I think. That, I'm sure there's, I don't follow marketing media at the moment, so I haven't picked up on any great ideas any brand has done. I'm sure there are plenty of those, but help customers, help your clients deliver some great initiatives that really help their customers, and then communicate around it.
Yeah, love it. James, do you want to be up next?
I can be. Just thinking. I don't know if my kind of top tip is any different to normal, really. I think it's, and I don't know whose phrase this is, but I nabbed it off somebody somewhere along the line, is just try and be interested and interesting. Is always something that I've kind of got in my head when I'm approaching people. So I don't think that's any different now. Obviously that relies on kind of understanding your audience. But yeah, that's my top tip.
Alex?
I think for us, or what's really helped me, is like really doubling down on your agency proposition and what your values are. And that has guided everything that we've done. And so if you've got a really good understanding of what that is, then it kind of, it writes the route for you, I think. So really taking time to consider what that is and how you're different.
Yeah, I think that for me, is probably, just to kind of wrap up, would definitely be my biggest tip. Certainly, there's been a lot of agencies, and I'm so sorry, there's so many questions, and it's so hard to get through them all in an hour. But we are saving them all, and I will make sure we address them. If you're an experiential agency, if you're a digital, whatever kind of agency you are, the landscape has changed. So be true to who you are and how you help people, but don't forget to relook at that and think about what your customers, so your Vincents, what the CMOs and the clients that you talk to, what are their needs now? If they've changed, then now is the time to kind of revisit that and look at your value proposition and think about how you can help them. And if that's changed slightly, dramatically, whatever that might be, don't be scared to, one, slightly evolve your agency offering, and two, evolve your messaging and your marketing around that, because if you don't, you will get left behind. I think this would be my top tip. So yeah, so we have gone a couple of minutes over. Just I want to say a huge thank you to all of you for joining me this morning. Some really fantastic insights. I hope you all found it as wonderfully useful as I did. I'm going to end the poll because I don't know if it gives us some sort of live results. I don't know. Hang on, share results. Can you see anything? Yes.
More than 3. There you go.
There we go. I will have a look at these and turn them into a nice pretty pie chart that I can work out how to present next time and share it with you all. But yeah, fingers crossed. It looks like things, are on the up, certainly even more so than last time. So there's a lot more opportunities coming through and things are starting to move again. So yeah, now's the time. If you haven't been working on your marketing and your share of voice, now's the time to do it.
Time to reboot now.
Yes, yeah, reboot. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely Tuesday. Enjoy the sunshine. Thank you for joining us on one of the hottest days of the year. And yes, see you all soon.
Yay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone.
Bye. Bye.